There we go. All right. I'm on a delay today. There we go. All right. So thank you all for joining me tonight. This is episode 13 of Gear Talk. Again, this is the time that I get to sit and talk a little skate geek stuff. I really love the technology of skating. I love skate stuff. I really love the technology of skating. I love skating. Been skating for a long time and been making hardware for a long time. And one of my favorite things is to just sit around and talk about what makes a skate great and why every skate is a little different and everybody's feet are a little different. So everybody's going to find something special about a skate that's going to make it their skate. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about liners. Now, liners is something a little weird to talk about, right? Most people never switch out their liner. They'll ride the liner that they got with their skate. And aftermarket liners weren't ever a thing. So let me show you. So the first skates that I ever got, so these are the Rollerblade TRS. And these are probably one of the original, pro-minded urban skates that we ever had. This was a stock liner that came with the TRS, and it's been 30 years, I think. Oh, I don't know that I could take this liner out. Maybe I can. Ugh, look at this thing. I'm breaking the cuff. The plastic hasn't held up very well over the years, but here's the liner. Let me show you what the liner looks like. So this was the original liner that most of us skated, and this thing, so pink aside, is really thin. So it's essentially a boot, right? That you slide your foot in, and this tongue slides in on top. The tongue is a little more solid than the outside, and then there's padding on the inside, padding on the front. Most of the time, I wonder if this one has it. Most of the time, it does. They also have a little insole, so this is what I'll call an insole. You'll also hear people call it a footbed. I've reviewed footbeds in the past, and you'll find a bunch of different footbeds out there with different features and little tweaks for functionality and shock absorption and comfort and such. This actually looks like a fairly standard footbed that you would find today, so that hasn't changed very much. But this was a liner. This was what the liners looked like back in the mid to late 90s. Early 90s, early to mid 90s. And, they didn't really change that much, to be honest. Over the years, liners have kind of stayed the same. There was a big change, at least for aggressive skating, when K2 came out with a fatty. And the big change for the fatty was that they didn't have a liner anymore. So this skate was one of the first, if not the first, that had an integrated liner. So this whole boot, this top portion, is the liner. So this doesn't come out. This is just a boot that's squishy, and it's the same characteristics that you'd find in the liner that the Rollerblade had, but it doesn't come out. So you were kind of stuck with this, and this was fine for us back in the days, probably because we didn't know any better. Nobody was replacing liners because there weren't aftermarket liners. All of that changed when was it? Must have been 99, maybe 2001. Around that time when Senate came out with the Sinister liner. Now, I don't have a pair of Sinister liners here, but Senate was the first company that I know of that made an aftermarket liner. That wasn't a skate company. Rollerblade probably had replacement liners for their TRS Access or whatever other skates they had. But Senate was the first that I know of that came out with the Sinister, and that was the aftermarket liner that everybody just kind of opened their eyes that, hey, we can get liners. It didn't do very well. And the question I always asked back in the days, I never bought an aftermarket liner. The question I always asked back in the days is, why would somebody want an aftermarket liner? Like, what's the point of getting an aftermarket liner? I have a perfectly good liner in my skate. You know, by the time the liner breaks down, it's probably time to replace the skate. You know, liners are pretty good quality, so why would I want to waste my money? Well, that's what I'm going to try to cover tonight. I think there's a lot that can be done with a liner that will make the feel of your skate much more personal and better for you, so that you have a more performant experience with your skate. Now, this obviously only includes the hard shell skates, you know, the K2. So in the current lineup, so these K2 front streets, these are like the ancestor of the fatty. You can't replace this liner. You're kind of stuck with the one that comes with it. Same can be said for the Seba. So this is a Seba CJ skate. It also has an integrated liner. A lot of people actually scrape out the inside of this Seba CJ boot or Seba SX boot, and they put a thin liner in to make it more responsive. You know, maybe they don't like the padding in this Seba, and that's an interesting thing that I'll cover in a later time. But for the most part, you know, you either have a built-in liner or you don't have a built-in liner. And there's a few skates on the market that have a built-in liner. We're not going to be talking about those very much tonight. But let's talk about the skates that do have a built-in liner. So first, the way I want to talk about this is talk about shell brakes first. So let me show you this. This is the Them medium size Them skate. So this is a new company that you might not know about. John Julio started earlier this year. They make boots, and then he sells frames for them, but they sell most of their skates boot only. The boot includes laces, a liner, and the bolts for you to mount a frame to it. Now, I've upgraded this Them skate to include aftermarket sole plates, 50/50 frames, different wheels, different laces, even a different footbed, to be honest. But for the most part, the shell of the boot is what we're going to talk about tonight. So everybody's foot is a little different. And skate companies provide sizing for your feet based on a variety of measurements. The most accurate is probably the centimeter one. So for this, I think that it goes from 27 to 28.5. And this is supposed to fit a 43, 44, which in the US would be like a 910. That's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of variable in there, right? This shell is a size 9 and a size 10 shell. So that means that if you wear a size 9 shoe, you would fit in this boot. If you wear a size 10 shoe, you would fit in this boot. Now that's weird, right? Why would you want two different sizes to fit the same boot? Well, the reason is that the shells, there's only 3 shells for this Them skate. So to cover size 6 to size 12, they have 3 shells. The 7, 8, size 7 to 12. The size 7, 8 is a small. The size 9, 10 is the medium, and then the size 11, 12 is the large. What's weird about this, and a lot of companies do that. So another example would be, this is a good example actually. So this is the Rossi's, Volo, RIP. So the Rossi's Majestic 12, same shell. There are a few shells, but the liners change based on the size of your foot. So this shell goes from size 9 to size 10.5. The liner changes every half size. So this is a 10.5 liner. So that means that this liner will fit my foot, I'm a 10.5, will fit my foot perfectly, and then this shell is going to be a little tight. Now, if you were a size 9 foot, you would have a size 9 liner, same shell, that liner would move around a little bit because there's more space inside the shell. That's where things get a little complicated. So that's where people usually like to switch out the liners so that they can fit their boots better. With this skate, for example, I feel like this skate fits me really well. It's a little tight, but I could probably do for a slightly shorter, if the shell fits fine, I could do with a slightly longer liner because the liner was a little tight. Conversely, if you were riding a size 9.5 and you were using the same shell, you would want a liner that was a little beefier. So the shell doesn't change. You're going to have to find a liner that fits your foot perfectly so that it fills out the inside of the shell. I know it's a weird concept, but let me show you a few examples of some liners that might help illustrate the idea. So this is my Powerside Imperial skate. Again, this is a size 44. This shell is a 43-44 shell. And this is my 10.5 liner. So this actually is a 2-size liner. I apologize. So this is an interesting one. This is the MyFit Fat Boy liner. So the MyFit is a aftermarket brand owned by Powerslide that makes a variety of liners that you can buy in stores. It did come with the Powerslide Imperial skates, but you can also buy this aftermarket if you want. This liner is interesting because the sides of this liner are extremely padded. It's the Fat Boy. That's kind of the point of the name, where the name comes from. It's a very fat sided. The front, so this part you can kind of see up here, is like a neoprene sort of toe. So it wraps around from the toe to the sides of the feet. What's interesting about that is you can move your feet. You can kind of see my foot moving a little bit in front of there. You can move your foot inside of that and it will stretch with your toes. So this liner is a 9-10 liner. It will fit feet sizes 9 through 10. So it might be a little snug on a size 10, 10.5, but because of this toe stretch, you can stretch your foot in there and you'll still be able to fit in. So this is a Fat Boy liner. Most of the MyFit liners are dual size. So they all fit multiple sizes. They all feature this toe thing in the front. Let me show you the Them 908 liner as a comparison. So this is the Them 908 liner, and you'll find the very similar padding on the sides. You know, that's really good for you know, the side of your ankle and like that little area, that little bone on the side of your ankle that can rub sometimes. What's different about this liner, this 908 liner, is that the front doesn't have that neoprene stuff. So this front is very rigid. So if your foot doesn't fit this liner perfectly, it's going to hurt. And remember, this liner fits size 9 and 10. So if you wear a size, if your foot is a size 10 or maybe a 10.5, it might be a little tight for you. And what a lot of people do with the Them skates is they'll get a smaller liner that fits them, but it isn't as padded. Then they can put that liner in the same shell and it'll feel better because there's a lot of room in the shell. So this Them 908 liner, it's fine. I actually like it. It fits me really well. But I know that a lot of people swap out the liners. Let me show you a couple of the liners just as a comparison. All right, so thanks to Oak City Skate Shop, I was able to get some of these liners, these MyFit liners, borrow them for this Gear Talk. So I got 3 pair of MyFit liners that I wanted to show you. So this is the second skin liner. This second skin liner features a much thinner padding area. So this front area doesn't offer much padding at all. And then as the MyFit, you know, the where the toes would wrap around, this area stretches as this neoprene feeling. So you'd be able to stretch your toes out. This second skin is what people recommend for skaters who have maybe larger feet and are trying to fit into a smaller shell. So, did I pick the right size? I did. What are the odds? 1 to 1. So if you were to skate a size medium them skate, and maybe your foot was a size 11, you had two options. If your foot is a size 11, you could fit a medium them skate and, so if you were a size 11, you would probably be recommended to get a large them skate. The problem with that is that you're going to be in the low end of that skate. So the skate is going to be much larger than you actually need it to be. And because they only make one liner for each shell, your foot's going to flow around a little bit in there. So what a lot of people do is they'll get a size 11 second skin liner, and they'll shove it in this medium them skate. So this is a size 11 liner, and it's inside a medium them skate. So this boot is supposed to be for a size 9 to 10 foot, but because we're using a thinner liner, you can fit your foot in to a smaller shell skate. It's a little more expensive. Each of these liners, so this MyFit second skin liner is like 90 bucks, I think, $95. Most aftermarket liners are anywhere between, I don't know, 70 to 100 bucks. This second skin liner is really nice. It is heat moldable, comes with a kind of cool, what is this, toe gripper, very neat footbed. I haven't skated these liners, so I don't know for sure, but I've heard a lot of people who skate them. My friend Anwar skates them, and he really likes these liners. So if you're trying to downsize, it's probably a good option. Now, what about the opposite? So what if you were riding this skate and you had a size 9 foot and you wanted to fill out as much of this with liner so that your foot felt more secure inside the boot, wasn't moving around a lot? Well, you could get one of these Fat Boy liners. Where is it? Oh, you know what? Sorry. Let's show you this one. So this is a crown liner. So this is the MyFit crown liner. This is, oops, did I get the wrong one? This is the recall liner. This is the recall liner. I'll show you it right now since it's up. So this is the recall liner. This liner is fairly beefy on the edges, and it offers a lot of memory foam. So the thought about this is that it's beefy on the sides so that when it fits into the shell, your foot's not going to move around very much. But because it has memory foam, it's going to give you a nice lock inside of your skate. So while it might feel kind of fat when you put your foot in, as soon as you put that foot in and tie up your skate, it should lock it in really nicely. This actually isn't the liner that I was going to recommend. This recall liner is really cool, but what I was going to do is show you the crown liner. Let me find that one. The labels on these bags aren't super easy to read. Here's that crown liner. So this is kind of a beast. So you can see how fat this liner is. This is what I was talking about if you wanted to upsize. So if you had a size 9 foot and you wanted to fit a 9 foot into a 910 shell, you might want to get a liner that has a lot more padding around it. And this is probably a really good option. This MyFit crown liner, I've heard nothing but good things about it. It's got a serious amount of padding on the edges. It feels actually a little stiff to me, but while squishing it in, I can feel that it's squishing down when I push my thumb in. So it'll probably mold really nicely to your foot. It's also heat moldable. So what you can do is you can put these in your oven at like 250 for 10 minutes or so. And then you put them in your skates and you tie up your skates and your foot, and then you sit for like 10 minutes so that it'll adjust. The material in here, when it heats up, it gets all squishy, and then when it cools, it'll mold to wherever your foot is. So probably a really good idea with this liner. This also offers this thing in the back, which Velcros on to give it a little more support, and then it also laces up. This is a pretty tech liner. I've never skated these, but they sure look pretty good. Oh, they even have a built-in shock absorber. Look at this thing. So you could take off this shock absorber if you wanted. Aftermarket liners, man, I tell you what. Compare this to, where did it go? Compared to this, the stock them liner. I mean, we're talking about a completely different game right here. And I actually love these. I mean, these are great liners. I have no problem with them. But if you want to customize, there you go. So liners are options. Ultimately, you're going to have to find the boot that fits you nicely. And you're going to have to talk about shell breaks. Back in the days, with, the late 90s, early 2000s, skate companies would make a shell for every size foot. So you could get a size 9 shell, a size 10 shell, a size 11 shell, and then you would get a size 11 liner and you'd put it in there and it would be fine. Those days aren't here anymore. Shells are usually spanning 2, maybe even 3 sizes. If you wanted to downsize, if you wanted to make that skate fit properly, you might have to get an aftermarket liner. The last thing that I want to talk about was the cream of the crop, and probably like the upper echelon of liners is the Intuition liner. So I actually have this on loan from my friend Steve Johns. He saw me out in California for Blading Cup, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a pair of Intuition liners. They don't fit me. You should take a look at them and see if they fit you and if you like them." And I like them. I haven't skated them yet. I'm going to start skating them hopefully this weekend. But these are the Intuition liners. So these are the version 2, I think, of the Intuition liner. Intuition is an interesting company. It is not a skate company. So My Fit is owned by Powerslide, which is a skate company. They make USD, they make Gods, they make undercover wheels. They are heavily invested in rollerblading. Intuition is a ski company. So their history is in making ski boots. And they are up in Canada and Vancouver, I believe. Or no, Toronto. And Leon, actually, over at ShopTask and the guy behind the Wizard Frame, was fascinated by these Intuition ski liners that he found. And he asked the guys, they're a local company, and he's a local company. He asked, "Can you do this for skating?" And they said, well, I don't see why not. So they started working on it, and they came up with this. So this is the Intuition liner. It is everything that you would want in a liner, and nothing that you don't need. The squishiness, the walls are stiff. They're very stiff. And I've heard that they take, about a week or 2 of skating to break in. But once they break in, they feel so good. They really fit to your foot. They include this thing in the back, which also Velcros on if you want them to be a little stiffer in the back. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to skate them with and then skate them without and see which one feels better. They have the same sort of thing that the Crown liner has, where it's this Velcro on the bottom where you could put a shock absorber in there if you wanted to. It doesn't have a footbed to speak of, so this is definitely more of a flatland sort of liner rather than jumping off of roof sort of liner. Doesn't have a shock absorber, within the insole. But what people love about these Intuition liners is that they are a lot of performance and a lot of padding for very little space. These are probably the most popular liners for people trying to downsize shells. So you remember I was talking about this them skate, this medium them skate, where'd it go? So this is a size, 9 to 10 shell. Well, what if your foot was like a size 9 and you wanted to get maybe down to a size small them skate shell? Again, why would you want to do that? Well, you want to have more responsiveness with your boot. The less wiggle room inside your skate, the more responsive that skating experience is going to be. So if your foot it fits fine in this shell without the liner, you might be able to fit an Intuition liner, which is a very thin liner, super thin. Fit it into the boot. This is the wrong size. Maybe I'll fit it in. Fit it into the boot. I'll get the other one. That looks silly. There we go. So fit it into the boot. And then you can have a smaller shell with less padding around the liner and a more responsive skate. A lot of people do this actually. I've seen a lot of Intuition liners in them skates, probably because the them sizing is a little weird. I think the width is the same from the small, medium, and large, but the length changes. So actually my friend Joey rides a small, I think he's a size 9 skate, size 9 foot. He wears a small them 908, but then he wears a medium Intuition liner and shoves that liner into the small skate so that he can, skate that small skate, and it's fine. I mean, he says that sometimes he gets a little bit of toe, if there's not a lot of room in the front and you come down and you like kick the pavement or something like that, you might stub your toe a little bit because there's not going to be a lot of protection up there. But, whatever works. I think ultimately what you need to do with liners is find the skate that you like and, put your foot in. I always recommend that people just find a skate that fits them well rather than trying to find the skate that's going to perform well. I think that you'll be really good on any skate that fits you well. Doesn't matter how big the sole is, doesn't matter how big the lacing system is or the buckles or anything like that. If you find a skate that fits your foot really well, that'll be a good skate for you. If you find that shell and something just isn't right, maybe you move around a little bit more at that ankle. Maybe you'd want something that's a little more padded, like the crown liner that has a little bit more padding up top. Or maybe if you've got a little bit of room forward and backwards, right? So you feel like your foot is moving around inside of the boot a little bit. Maybe you want to get a smaller shell and get one of these thin Intuition liners or the MyFit Second Skin liners. A very minimal liner that's going to fit into that shell, which will give you a much better fit. Now, of course, the problem is that you're going to have to try all this stuff on. So if you have a local skate shop, highly recommend that you go over there and just talk to them. Say, hey, this is what I'm skating now, or this is what I'm interested in skating. If you don't have skates yet, you should get some skates. But if you have skates, this is what I'm skating now, and this is how it feels. Try next time you go out skating and see if you can detect how your foot feels inside your skate. Is it moving forward and backwards? Is it moving left and right? And you can make tweaks with your liner and get a different liner that can enhance the sides or the front or downsize or whatever to make it a more solid feeling so that you skate better. And that's ultimately it. If you find the skate and liner combination that's going to fit your foot perfectly, you're going to have a really great time skating. All right, good to go. A little rough one that time. It was hard to come up with the things because I'm not super liner expert, so it was really difficult for me to speak to them. I had so many things that I wanted to talk about, but it was really hard to get out. So I might have to do that one over again. I might have to do it again another time. But I think ultimately the message that I wanted to say is go to a local skate shop. if you have a skate shop, go to a skate shop. See what that skate shop will recommend from liners. There are so many liners now out on the market that you can find the liner that's perfect for you. Find that liner that fits your foot. Find the shell that you like. That combination of a really nice fitting liner and a good shell is going to make skating so much fun. So there's nothing worse than a sloppy skate, and that's ultimately what I want to try to avoid and try to help people fix in their skating lives. All right, let me go through a few comments, and then I've got some fun stuff. All right, let me scroll all the way up. All right, yeah, I don't know what was going on. I had some weird buffering issues in the beginning. Is it buffering now still? Looks like it's okay now. Something funny going on. Yes, so intuitions are $200. Again, neglected to say that in the talk. All of these liners, these crown liners, these are like 90. I think these might be $100. They are, I don't know. I haven't skated the intuitions yet. It's really hard for me to say if they're worth it or not yet. For me, my foot fits fine in them 908s. So it's a really difficult sell, These 908 liners that came with them skates, they just fit me. And it might be because, my foot is just that perfect balance between being too long or being too short. But they fit me great. And I don't know that I plan on replacing the liners, but I am going to try the intuitions in them just to see how they feel. I know a lot of people struggle with this skate specifically because the liner just doesn't fit them properly. So. All right, Kira, thoughts on wax laces? I actually love these laces. So these are laces that I got when I was in California at a hockey shop. They are 72 millimeter, I think, or 72 inch. I guess they measure them in inches, don't they? They wouldn't be 72 millimeters. It's a little short for 72 millimeters. It would be like this long. It would be difficult to tie a bow. 72 inches. Wax hockey laces, they're great. They don't slip around. They fit fine. I think they look great. The laces that came with them 908s weren't great. So it's nice to have some options out there. I mean, there's so many laces out there. I haven't tried the non-wax laces, though. I don't know that they would make that big of a difference. But I am liking the wax laces, so highly recommended. All right, let me clean up real quick. Got some liners here, got some liners here. All right, I will clean these up. Again, thank you, Steve. I know that you're watching. I don't know that Long is watching, but thank you guys for letting me borrow these liners. I don't know if I'm ever going to skate them. And I'm going to give these ones back to Long, or more just for the demo. But it's fascinating that there's so many different liner options out there. I mean, my fit makes 5 different liners, I think, which is just crazy to think. But, I mean, they've got a lot of skates. So, all right. So something fun tonight. So I actually have a friend in town who, we're recording this the night before Thanksgiving. And my friend Frank Stoner came in town. He has family about an hour away from here. And I drove out to visit him over the weekend and say, hey, Frank and I have been talking for a while. Frank was on the podcast before. Probably best known for his writing. He's probably the smartest dude I know. And he just happens to be a rollerblader, which is a great connection. So Frank is here. And we're going to set up so that we can have a little chat about hardware and geeky stuff. So give me 1 second. I'm going to move some stuff around and get another chair. Hold on. All right. This poor thing fell apart. sure that I'm still there, and I'll bring in the chair. All right. You can hear my dog tonight. All right, plenty of room. You can see the live screen there.
Okie doke.
Yes. So first of all, thank you so much for coming out. It's a long drive.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but it could be closer. So Frank and I have talked a lot. We had a nice breakfast on Sunday and had some pancakes and a lot of coffee. And we just every conversation always tends to go to the technical side of things. It always goes to frame hardware and trick history, and we were talking about my blading school thing, and if you had to learn skating again, how would you learn? What would be the best way to learn? And I thought it was a really great conversation. Maybe not for Gear Talk, but what do you want to talk about? What ideas do you have? We've got a captive audience who I'm sure are interested to hear.
What do I want to talk about?
Yeah, what would you like to talk about? We've got plenty of time.
I think to go back to your liners thing.
Yes.
Because that's sort of your main topic for the evening.
Sure.
I think it would be really, really cool to figure out a way to let people figure out the volume of their foot.
That would be really cool.
I mean, you could do it with like a bucket, and you fill it with water, and you put your foot in.
Yeah.
And you find out the volume of your foot. And I think it would be cool to start trying to push skate manufacturers and liner manufacturers to publish a volume.
Interesting.
In addition to, because that's the ball game. If you're trying to size up or size down, you need to know the volume. So if you've got the Valo, if you've got the them skates, you can't fill the skate with water and then stick your foot in it.
Right.
So then you need something else. So can you do it with packing peanuts or bubble wrap, or like there's got to be some kind of a way to dream up where because a great piece of advice, which is obviously good advice, to go to your skate shop. Number one, support a local skate shop. If you've got one, for God's sake, go buy stuff from those guys. But number two, that kind of falls on deaf ears a lot because most people don't have a shop.
They won't have a skate shop.
And so, part of I'm in a worst case scenario where I've got a foot that's in between sizes. Yeah. And so not even the question of sizing up or sizing down, but like I'm an 11 and a half. And so the 11, 12, how's it go? Like the 12, 13 shells in some brands don't fit me. Yep. And the 10, 11 shells are too small.
Yep.
Given like a stock liner. Yeah. Particularly like with the them style neoprene toe.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
hopeless.
You're not nobody makes this skate for you.
Somebody, but so somebody can figure out a way to measure volume without using water. You could measure the volume of your foot easily with water. Make a mark on a bucket, put your foot in the water, see how high it goes up, and then do the math from there. That would be fairly straightforward. But to find out liner volume, that could, it's this is Gear Talk, right? So we can nerd out all the way, tough. Right? It's still a difficult problem that you're trying to solve, and probably. What I think would be most interesting about it is that you're really talking about a tiny difference in volume. Yep. Even those crown liners, which look amazing, they look like sports cars. And they're also super fat. When you were holding them, I was sitting there hiding behind the camera watching. They're like beefcake, man.
They feel like basketball shoes.
Yeah.
Which is not what you would think that you would put inside of an already bulky skate. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a very different feeling.
But so my question would be, how much difference in volume is there between that and an Intuition? Because that thing looked huge. I mean, you're going to get big differences in volume with people's feet, but like, how much, if you're 1 to 100 units, how much difference is there between an Intuition and between, I don't know. I think that would be cool.
I think it would, so my thoughts on that. So I think there might be a way to approximate the volume of somebody's foot by taking specific measurements, right? So you find the heel to your longest toe, because we don't really care as much about your middle toe, right? Assuming that your middle toe isn't going to be super long. Most of these liners, you know, they have that foot, that angle at the end that follows your foot, but really all they care about is the longest toe. Mm-hmm. The width, like maybe there's like 3 different points that you could test, you know? Like, I don't know, I've never designed a liner, but if you look at it, there's definitely like where the heel is, where the front is, the height of your foot, like all of this stuff hasn't been, I don't think anybody's ever.
Do you remember back in the day when you'd go to get shoes in the mall and you'd put your foot on that thing and they would measure?
Well, there used to be a time, I don't know if I ever had this happen. You
like
get everything, yeah.
But it's like distance from heel to the ball of your foot.
Yes.
And then you get overall length, and then you also get width. It's a clever device. Like it's measuring.
I mean, maybe that's the
four aspects.
Axes. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 axes.
Maybe that's the answer, especially nowadays. I mean, the solution is to go to your local skate shop, but 90% of us don't have access to a skate shop. There's got to be a way to do it. You know, Zappos sells a ton of shoes online, and I would imagine their returns are not that high. I don't know, but you would think that they've solved that problem. They are a shoe company that makes millions of dollars by sending stuff online. There are, I don't know, I mean, having people that measure their feet and then can compare, I think that might be good. Having reviews to say, does this fit true to size? But even true to size is
that's
misleading.
Nonsense.
What does true to size mean? You know?
Yeah, like in Nikes, I think I wear like a 13. And in like skateboarding shoes, I wear like an 11 and a half. But in other shoes, I wear like a 12. It's true to size. That's just like mean spirited.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm for whatever reason my foot isn't normal. Interesting. All right, we're not going to be able to tackle that tonight.
We need a dry erase board and some markers to figure out how do you calculate volume.
I need more coffee.
But I feel like we should put some brain power on that. That's a solvable problem.
I think it's a solvable problem. And the nice thing is that, big picture, the reason why I do all these things is to make skating better, the skating experience better for people. I want people to be able to go out and skate and enjoy it every single time they go out. And if the fit of their liner is the reason why they're not having a good time skating, that's a problem. And that's a problem that can be solved. I don't know if any website has done it, or if, you know, ultimately it probably doesn't rely on the brand. It's probably the shop, like the Roller Warehouse, the Inline Warehouse, the Oak City, whoever has that online shopping to say this is where the sizing fits and this is where things are. I don't think anybody really does that. It's really hard to find that sort of spec detail in an online shop. Add to that, I don't think a lot of people care. And we need to educate people that they need to care. Like, we talked a little bit about frame sizes, and what size frame do you ride? Oh, well, I'm a size 2. All right, like, what does that mean? You know, what's your wheelbase? Like, how, you know, how long is 1 to 4? Like, what's the balance between? What's the split? Like, there's all this data that you need. Oh, it's, people don't think about it.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing with most of these kinds of predicaments where we don't need to care that most people don't care. Like, if we're the blade nerds, we care, and the 32 people we got listening to us, they care, y'all care. So like, we don't care that the other 24,970 people don't pay attention to this.
Right.
Well, I won't get into the politics of it, but there's a whole thing in a West Wing episode where they're talking about a political problem, and the one guy's saying, you know, they'll like us when we win, you know, like we don't have to explain that you know, these, you know, it was about Mussolini or something like that. They're saying like, we don't have to explain to the Italians that we don't like them. They're a conquered people, and in World War II, like, we need to go and get rid of this guy. You'll like us when we win. And so as far as the all these kinds of things, mushroom blading, blade nerd stuff, talking about who cares about the volume, nobody's going to publish. Al and somebody else was talking about, it's called the Brannock scale, that little foot measuring device.
Yeah, sure.
So like, It doesn't matter
No.
that no one else knows this and that no one else is going to care. They'll like us when we win, when they get a better liner,
Yes.
when they get a better sizing. We'll win in the long run.
Very true.
If everybody gets this stuff. But also, just to go back, calculating a volume. That's a homemade solution that we can put some brains on that and figure that out.
I think you're right. I think there needs to be and
or even publish a standard and just say this is a Frank and Lawrence scale.
Yes, exactly.
In unit 1, and then a unit 2, and then a unit 3.
This is what it.
Poofy scale 1, poofy scale 2, poofy scale 3, or whatever, so that at least there's something, and then people could at least reference it. You could at least have a sense of it, because when you're looking at a guy on a YouTube video, and he's saying these are really big and poofy, like, well,
it doesn't
what's
mean anything
poofy to you? Yeah, it's the same thing as true to size.
Precisely.
To say, this does. I don't know how big it is until you put it in your own skate and you heat mold it and all this stuff. You're never gonna know until you actually get there. But if you had somebody at least making an effort to say so, that this is a Lawrence poofy scale 1, poofy scale, so
I feel as though there are a finite number of measurements that could be put on a chart somewhere, and that person could measure that. So it's definitely the length, right? That's all that we go off of now. It's, for this one, for example, it's a 27.9 to 28.6 centimeter. So that is from the heel to the toe. That's the only measurement. So they don't know the width. You know how they have the D width or the E width or whatever?
Yeah.
I never knew what that meant, but that's not a number. Like, give me a centimeter.
Yeah,
right?
I think that the actual size would be good to know. I think that, like, the unstretched size and the stretched size. Like, you know those, it's called a last, like the wooden thing that goes in a shoe.
Okay,
And so the last has, like, a threaded screw in it.
Yes.
And you could, like, take a tool and advance it. So what I would want to know in a liner that's got a neoprene toe is, from its resting place, how far can you advance the toe before you need to go to the next liner? Because what I would expect is, like, people have mentioned on here the Trust Special Ops.
Yeah, I remember
And
those.
I had what was like the large or whatever.
Okay.
And I would put my foot in there, and they would stretch like an inch. Because my foot.
Because it had this neoprene thing?
Well, and the whole boot was neoprene. And it wasn't like, it wasn't just the toe cap, it was like the whole thing. And so
that's
if you just measure the thing sitting on the ground like that, it's such and such long. And then if you and then if you put your foot in there, like, the whole thing is now the size of my foot.
Yeah.
So it would be neat to know, like, what's the stretch rating for that liner.
Yeah, before it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, before it's just like sorry, I'm holding this notepad, like pushing.
Your toes start curling in, like the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, when they curl up. Oh, that's so bad. It's like when you get a cramp in the night and that's the worst.
All right. Liners. Let's talk about frames.
Okay.
Because I know that you have a lot of opinions on frames.
That sounds bad.
Opinions are good. What is your current? First of all, what's your current skate setup?
My current skate setup is, well, we talked about it the last time we podcasted. It's been unchanged now for like years.
Okay.
I skate a Shadow shell, and I hoarded and stockpiled a whole bunch of those when word came around that they might go away. So I've got bins of all the parts. I've got upwards of 20 of all the pieces for each skate.
Right.
So I've got 20 pairs of skates worth of parts. I hate those skates. I think that I'm stuck with it because I haven't had either a shop to go to or the resources to try a bunch of different liners.
Right.
And say, well, I'd love to get intuitions, but
yeah.
I need to make my mortgage this month, and so that's happening, and the liners are going to get pushed off till maybe for next month, and then maybe for next month turns into 2 years.
Yep.
So anyway, so to answer the question, Shadow liners, I wear, or Shadow skates, the 1.0s, not the 2.0s with the cuff thing.
Yep.
I tried the cuffs, the 2.0 one, and the forward flex is like unskateable. What I've heard is that if you drill out holes and then put T-bolts in, so you eliminate the ability for the cuff to hinge, you can cease that forward flex.
Okay.
Sort of like the way that the old Solomons, are they available?
Yep.
Have that sort of, around here they have these like riveted down in the back. So there's a tiny amount of forward flex available, but it's
not too much.
If you cut this off, the thing would just flex out of control. And that's basically what the Shadow does.
Interesting.
So if you basically just drill 2 spots right here, put 2 T-nuts in, you eliminate all that forward flex.
Got it.
And people have said that that's a workable solution.
Huh.
Anyway, and then I ride, what do you call it? Kaiser Elements.
Yep.
Which you've got a pair of up there. Actually, are those the large?
I don't know.
You might have to keep an eye on these while I'm here. 'Cause I've stockpiled. Let's see. Let me hold these up high now. I've stockpiled these as well. These are freshies, man.
Yeah. I got those from Germany. Some they were on Blade Trade, and I had them imported. They're beautiful.
So I ride these frames. I like it that you've got these correctly oriented. With the small size. Everyone should know this. If you're gonna ride flat or rockered, not anti-rockered, the small groove goes down.
Yes.
The small groove is the groove that's available. You won't really be able to see this, but you can flip this H block over.
Yeah,
he's got it. Look at this guy. Look at the preparation.
I'm ready. Look.
So this is.
It's like his first time here, right? He doesn't know I do this.
This is the frame with the small groove down, available for grinding.
Yes.
And that's what you would use for a flat setup or a rockered setup, where the 2 middle wheels are lower, or any combination of the wheels in the middle are lower or bigger, depending on the case, than the outside 2. Which is the reason why anti-rocker is small wheels, rather big wheels on the outside. Anyway, so little groove if you're riding flat or rockered, what some people call banana rocker. And then if you are going to ride a frame like this, you put the big groove. This frame has a removable H block or grinding block, I guess.
Yeah.
That you can flip over and put the little side down like so, or you can put the big side down like so. If you're going to ride anti-rocker, and most people don't know that. Everybody seems to think that the bigger the groove, the better, and all that. It's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
The what are they called? The Valo frames that were like just the generic stock frame that everybody had. Those things had a tiny, tiny groove in them, and a lot of people who skated, people who skated flat love that frame because of this really small groove right in there.
Yeah.
But so then to finish out my setup, I ride these with 56 in the middle, 54 on the outside, and it gives me about a 1 mil rocker. But the other thing that's worth paying attention to when you're rockering is that the distance between these 2 wheels, from how far in to how far out, affects the angle that this will pitch up at.
Exactly.
So if you move this wheel back, and you've got a 1 mil rocker on it, you're actually increasing the angle that this goes up.
Right.
So when I'm skating and I'm coasting and I'm on my heels and I'm only skating on these 2 wheels, this wheel is up probably 4 or 5 mil. So there's no hope of this wheel touching the ground when I'm coasting on my back 2 wheels.
Right.
It would be less than that if this gap were smaller.
Sure.
Because now the 1 millimeter rocker that I've got,
the angle is less.
Is less pronounced.
Precisely.
So all those kinds of things play a role in figuring out what you're going to do with your setup. I spent about forever coming up with that setup, but
it works for you.
I've had it for a long time now, and back in the day when people would actually fill out their Facebook profile, it asks you for like, where are you from, and all that, where'd you go to school, and who's your best friend, and all this kind of stuff. And then it asks for, like at one stage, it asks for religion. And I put as my religion 54, 56, 56, 54, because I found it and just converted full commitment to that religion.
It's crazy.
And it's been at least close to 15 years that I've been riding exactly that setup.
With a single mill. So why? So this frame will fit up to a 58 flat, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Or a 60. Is it 50?
I don't think
These
it'll fit a
58s.
60. I don't think it'll fit a 60 because it won't fit the 60 in the middle.
Yeah.
You could get a 60 on the outside.
Rub on the blocks.
But 58, is that a 58?
That's a 58. So but that's pretty close.
You would be
maybe a 59.
Yeah, right? we're talking. This is an impossible thing, but We're talking about the distance between where the screw would go and where the wheel would touch that screw when the frame was installed.
Right.
It's hard to conceptualize if you don't know it.
Why did you go with 54, 56 and not 56, 58?
Well, I didn't know that the 58 would fit, but also at the time, Eulogy had a whole set where you had several choices in the 56 size, several choices in the 54 size. I think back when I started hoarding all this stuff, because once I got the setup dialed in, it was just, you got these from Europe. I bought, there's a guy called Merrick who runs Hedon Skate. Or Head On Skate. I don't know how to pronounce it. Apologies if we're mispronouncing it.
I don't know.
But he had a box. And I called him and I was like, I'll buy that box. Just tell me how to give you the money and I'll give you my address. And so I got a box of these things. So I've stockpiled these. I've stockpiled all the hardware for them, all the frame walls, all the H blocks. I would like to mill an aluminum one of these to bolt in there. Be really neat. Because that's way cool. And if I were going to make one, it would need to be reversible because I'd never touch the other side.
Right. You have your groove. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And it would stay that way more or less permanently. Sorry, I'm not holding it up high enough. That was one of the things I was going to tell you as a viewer, like, you know, hold it up, hold it up. I was going to make a sign that said hold it up.
There, camera's down a little bit. There.
That's good.
Better.
Anyway, that's my setup.
So that's an interesting setup. So why did you go with the elements versus anything else? Is it the split? Is it because the wheelbase for that element is higher than, and Creates or 50/50s or anything else that you could have stockpiled in the days. What is it about that element frame that made it your frame?
So I like it that it's a low profile. I like the low profile and I like the length. Those two things were probably the main things, and then the groove being right helped. But also when you have a bigger foot, if I grab this back, when you have a bigger foot, having this rigid aluminum extruded frame, it helps keep the platform of the shadow, because my shadows, they're cafeteria trays, man. Like they're absolutely huge.
Big skate.
And I skated them with ground control Formula Ones.
Okay.
And I found
that would be rough.
When I was and I skated them rockered, exactly the same setup, 54, 56, 56, 54.
Okay.
But when I'm hooking fakie through a bowl corner, I would feel it twisting. Like I could feel it twisting under my foot, because there's just so much torsion and twisting and all this that, you know, when you have a big foot, having a metal frame really, really helps with the stability. And so anybody who's shopping around, I don't know if you're probably never going to do those 50/50 aluminum deals.
I don't know. It's an expensive investment.
Yeah. But it would be the same thing if you were doing power blading, and if you've got a big foot, and if you're going to put it on something really flimsy like a shadow, consider a metal frame.
Right.
Because whether it's big wheels or
anything.
Anything. Not having the skate itself deforming.
Yes.
Especially when you're going fast or cornering or making turns, anything where you need, it's like a mission critical kind of scenario. Which may include grinding. Grinding is kind of mission critical. Although usually you would have the rail or the ledge helping to hold your foot.
But keep it stable.
And also it helps, these plastics get squishier in summer months when it's really hot.
Oh, totally.
Especially if you leave them in your car and go to work and you're going to skate after work. If it's 150 degrees in your car trunk, your skate can really start to wig out. And so anything that you can use to solve a problem, like a metal frame, is going to keep that skate from deforming, and then all the rest of your life is going to be better. So
that makes sense.
Helping to keep the low profile, the length. I like the groove. I do like that you can little things like you have one Allen key access, because these frames are like on a hockey frame or a speed skate frame where there's an Allen key on one side, and it actually just threads into the other side. So this side of the frame is threaded, and so it's a female that receives the axle.
Yeah.
So anytime, ever since like Fifth Elements with the square bolts.
Yep.
Anytime I can carry fewer tools.
Yeah, smart.
That's gonna be good for me.
And that helps with rigidity. So typically, you'll hear a bunch of names, but I usually call them speed axles.
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
Those are, like you said, usually aluminum frames because they needed that thread in order to get into. But the less moving parts means the less power transfer that you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to have, and that's why I think those frames are very similar to these Kaiser Arrows. I don't know if it's the same extrusion, but if you look at the top, it's a very similar look. Like if you were looking top down, you could see that as that same frame. They also have this
grind plate.
Basically, yeah.
It's a Machio grind plate.
Full grind plate. This is a very rigid thing, though. The axles meet in the middle instead of.
Oh no, that's the worst. Bauer used to do that.
Yeah.
And they had. Oh, that was the worst. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the worst.
I don't know why.
I don't even want to get into that. That's like bringing back childhood nightmares. Of like one screw coming out.
Yeah.
And you're like out on the hockey court trying to find where the hell. And you're like telling your friends like, everybody lay down on the ground and see if you can see my screw.
It's a very standard Kaiser thing. So
their old ones did that.
The current ones do that. The Aeons,
really?
These ones do that. These Aeons.
I bet they must have bought. And they're the ones that say Kaiser around the outside.
Yeah, you can see them.
They must have bought like a billion of those things, and now they're just stuck with that. So whoever made that decision, I'm wagging my finger at you.
That's what the original super axles were, the 50/50 super axles. They met in the middle. They were 6 mil, and they broke. I don't know that these break, but that meeting in the middle thing, I think that the steel all the way across from one side to the other is the right way to go.
Yeah. Is that so? Like, I've never seen these before in real life.
Yeah.
So this is effectively a modified slimline.
Yeah.
The way that inside goes in like that?
It's a slimline, it's an element, it's a lot of different frame ideas put together. Okay. The brilliance is that with the Aeon, there is no UFS.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about frame bolts. If you take out this inside, you can see it goes so low. Get out of there. It goes so low that you can actually see the wheels inside the.
So I don't know if you can see what he's talking about, but you can the sort of the sole of the skate is so shallow that there's actually a dado that goes through the bottom of the skate. That's interesting. I was wondering why that piece of plastic was in there, and now it's obvious.
I have
and it's on all 4 wheels.
It's on all 4 wheels. These are the 72 mil Aeons.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Without wheels, that would be really easy to see.
Yeah.
So
I'll trade you.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can see it that way. You can see daylight through all those.
Yeah.
See all the people.
Very crazy. So
that's
again,
insane.
much respect to Powerslide for doing it. Like, it's such a big leap for an aggressive skate to come out in 2016 when these came out, 2015, and not be UFS. Like, that's
brave.
Yeah, very brave. Very popular, and these skates are the skate that I recommend for anybody coming back to blading. I think that the 60 millimeter Aeon is just a perfect compromise. You've got a nice big, like the lunch tray style sole that Frank loves. You've got the big split. I mean, this split is probably the same as the Element. You've got that tight groove so that it's designed for skating flat. It's flat 60. I have 58s in here now, but it can accommodate 61s without any wheel rub, even though nobody makes a 61 millimeter wheel. Comes with a really nice MyFit liner, which is, that heat molded. It's the Skinny Boy. I don't know that I showed, but it's a Skinny Boy liner, so it's a very thin liner. 45-degree strap. I mean, it's really an amazing skate, and they're like $300. They're not this crazy skate, so.
The only objection I've ever had to USD is that the cuffs I always thought were hard.
They can be.
Razor's cuffs and Valo cuffs and rollerblade cuffs were always sort of nicely bendy.
Yeah.
And then you can get rigidity in any number of ways by tightening the buckle.
Yeah.
Or putting something in there, like the way that the Intuition liners have that sort of stiffener on the back.
Yeah,
there's any number of ways to get it stiffer, but once it's too stiff, you're sort of up a creek with no paddle.
Yeah.
But so one of the things that I've always heard, and I'll probably be putting myself out on a little bit of a limb here.
That's what we do.
One of the one of the complaints that I've heard over the years about the sort of power slide model is that they have an idea and they put it out, and if it doesn't work or it doesn't sell or whatever their problem is, they'll abandon it.
Sure.
And in a lot of cases, like with 50/50, you can actually go frame by frame by frame and see the evolution of this is what we added next, like as if you're just accreting layers onto the development of the thing. Where, there's no the current balance frames have those diamond bumpers.
Yeah, juice bumps we call them.
Juice bumps. Okay. On there, but you don't have that on the original
exactly.
ones. So you can see that that's just literally
added
on.
And those again were based off of these.
Right.
So it was the same split. This was the original 50/50 frame, and it was just a flat frame with very similar split, very tight groove, so that you could ride flat without having any wheel bite issues. And then, you're right, we kept building onto it and building onto it. And the UFS version was a very similar version from this, still had the 6mm axles. Then we went with 8mm axles, and we added the juice bumps to make it a little less resistance when you're doing soul tricks, lock you a little better on when you're doing topside, stuff like that. It's always a progression for me.
Yeah, I think so. And so where I think it's a little bit unfair is to say that to USD, because they have put out multiple iterations of the same thing several times. And so you don't need to just iterate something to death before you get to whether or not it works.
Fair.
Sometimes you put something out and say, no, that was just a flop. It was a flop commercially. It was a flop technically. Forget it. Just everybody's over that. Just into the waste bin of history with that thing. But, I kind of wonder about that with something like this, where how much more are they gonna spend developing this concept, where it's the frame, it's the boot, it's everything basically but the liner, the cuff and the wheels. Something that's always driven me absolutely insane is that there's never been. Okay, so Razors did this for a brief moment in time, where they actually had soft, medium, and hard cuffs.
Yes.
And the problem was that those incidentally came in 3 different colors.
Yeah.
And so with the color technology crowd, people, I want the ones with the baby blue because those are dope. You know. And
even though they were probably the squishy ones, right? And they're like,
they were the squishy ones. Shit. And people were flopping all over the place. But no one was paying attention to the dark blue ones are the hard ones.
Right.
The regular blue ones are the medium, and then the baby blue is the soft.
Absolutely.
With something like this, it would be really nice to see aftermarket cuffs.
Yeah.
Or even cuff options.
Yeah.
Whether it's cuff height. Yep. Or whether there's any other features like the argon.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen.
I don't have any argons here, but they had the short cuff and the tall cuff.
Yeah, but they also had a pivoted hinge, which is like the most brilliant thing ever that's been forgotten by rollerblading. Tons of people didn't even know it. They just thought their skates were floppy or crappy or whatever. But I think that this shell could probably be developed over several more iterations.
Yes.
And I also think that more like a cuff options would be cool. USD's always had either stiff and low cuff, which on my foot, it just digs at the wrong part of the inside of my shin. Like, it's just skin straight to the bone, and there's nothing there. Like on the outside, there's at least some meat, But I think that there's lots more to do. We're not at the end of history in terms of skate design and skate development.
Not.
And I don't want to paint USD into a corner for having just put out one and then abandoned it. They have taken a lot of things and iterated and improved. A lot of the stuff that we see on that Kaiser element is that same extrusion. lots of things about the manufacturing process is probably learned along the way, both for them and the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And that's all really valuable, even if that's inside baseball. But this is gear talk.
That's what we do.
So we can go into the tall grass on that stuff.
So something interesting about the Aeon, if you look at this shell, so this is the 60. This is the 60, that's the 72.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you cut off the frame, it's the exact same boot.
Yeah.
What they did is they have an insert. So we did, do I have one here? Shoot, I don't. So with 50/50, we made 2 sizes of frames, but it was actually the same mold. The change was with a little bit of an angle in the back. And all that it is a mold insert that makes this part come out a little bit more. So it had a different angle, and it made the frame look longer. My thought, and I haven't gotten it confirmed, but my thought is that the shell is the same for the 72, for the 60, even for the 80 millimeter Aeon. All that they're doing is changing the frame. So this is the 270 mil 60 frame. This is the 270 mil 72 frame, and then they make a different frame for the different shell breaks. What's interesting about that is they can modify this. If they find that the shell isn't great for one thing, they can modify it, and then it impacts everything across their line. The 60s, the 72s, and the 80s will all get that same enhancement. I think it's fascinating. I think that
it's a really clean molding. I mean, this is
it's a beautiful skate.
It's a really nice. It's a really nice piece of plastic.
Yeah. I think that they're doing it. I think that this is them putting their flag on and saying that we're going to be here for a while. They're heavily invested in the Aeon as the future of their aggressive skates. I don't know if the 80 is here for a long term. I don't have a set of 80s. I don't know what the 80 use case is personally. I think that the 72 is a great size for all around blading, for recreational skating, for aggressive skating, for everything. I recommend the 72s if you're just planning on getting back to skating, 60s if you plan on getting back to do grinder blading specifically. But knowing that USD is investing in that Aeon shell, and this is like the 3rd year that they've come out with new ones, and they have new ones coming out for 2019. I feel like this is going to be here for a while, and the little tweaks that they've made, new cuffs, new like little designs and stuff, I think that this is the beginning of again, against the one and done sort of Kaiser Elements thing. If they don't hit it out of the park, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe they just happen to hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think iterating this, I mean, you can already see differences between these two where there's no bumpers on here, and those have the bumpers.
Yeah.
This cavity right here is massively bigger.
Yeah.
And I bet that the internals are going to be slightly different.
Yeah, they should be the same, I would think. But again,
maybe they are.
I've never got anything confirmed from them, but it's a great system. I'm real excited about the future of the Aeon. I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, yeah, if the mold is just like this in the manufacturing process, if this somehow connects into the mold and these are interchangeable to where they can keep this boot the same way, where I think that you're probably right, where this boot, this shell portion is identical to that one, but somehow they've made all these changes. Yeah. And there's no evidence.
No.
I don't see any kind of tooling marks where
it's real clean.
Yeah, it's super clean. But, there's neat stuff. I'd be interested to see if they do a lot of exploration with different frame heights to do like a big wheel. I mean, 72 in my mind is already pretty big.
They make an 80.
Do they?
Yeah.
In this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So one thing like that you would predict, for instance, would be that this angle right here on the bevel or the chamfer ought to change with every single one of these because all that angle needs to do is accomplish being greater than the width of the sole plate.
Right, so you don't wash out when you're skating.
Yes, so it occurs at the same moment, right? If you can flex this over to set slide on the ground, if you're ever able to hit this edge of the frame, it ought to be the same moment when you're hitting the outside of that. So you ought to predict that, when you're optimizing a frame for different wheel sizes, that this chamfer, the angle of that chamfer ought to be equal to the width or equal to whatever that point is.
I think that's fair.
On the outside of that, it's what you would predict.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I mean, if they're these guys know what they're doing. Like
they do.
These are engineers and they think that stuff through. But you know, who knows? And that's a pretty thin frame wall. Actually, it's pretty thick right there.
Yeah.
But you know, by the time you ground that off and had a hole in your skate, like these are trash.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's the beauty of it. It's $99 to replace that shell, so you can get replacements.
You buy just this piece?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. That's way cool.
So it's just like replacing a frame, but
it has the boot. Yeah, interesting.
Plates with it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Again, I think it's a great system. My review of so I got these from Powerside. They gave them to me for the review, and then I bought these 60s shells, and you can see this cuff is from that skate.
Oh, because it's that gray
and
color.
This is from that skate. So I was able to replace most of the parts, and these axles were from that skate. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's totally interchangeable. It's a really smart system.
I still think that there were a bunch of things that were done to skates back in our day that were incidental, that were fashion, but they actually solved a lot of problems. I've talked here and elsewhere about the grind plate itself solving wheel bite problems, because we don't grind like skiers. We grind with our feet at an angle.
Yeah.
And so when you turn your foot at an angle and you put it on something, if you're putting it on a grind plate where you're adding, thickness to right here, what you're effectively doing is lifting the frame off.
Yep.
And so the way that most people measure width is with their fingers.
Yeah.
And they say, it's a 3-finger gap or 4-finger, or however big it is. The thing is, if you're turning the skate to an angle, you're actually, I don't know how to say this. It's like taking a wheel and making it into a conic section.
Yep.
Where what you're doing is, by turning the wheel, the ledge or the deck of the coping or whatever will be encountering that wheel at a part further down the radius.
Yep.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does.
This would be a great opportunity for a dry erase board.
Well, and that's where wheel profiles comes in, right? So a more blocky, like the Elements ones, or like, you can compare this. So this is a Conjure 58 millimeter wheel. It's a very square profile.
Yeah.
Versus there's a good one. Where's my dead wheels? I think I have them on, unfortunately. Oh, I can go even further. So there's this. This is a 58, and then there's this. This is a 60, probably 58 by now. And the profile means that when you're skating, this is going to stick out a little further, because that flat area is going to hit the deck of the ramp or the top of the ledge or whatever first. Another one that I found. So this is a hockey wheel. Look at this profile. You guys can see this a little better. So this is a 59 millimeter Lebeda Rink Rat and 5974A. That thing's crazy. But imagine that. You would just slide, right? I mean, there would be no wheel bite.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, the wheel bite is this edge. Is the same reason why we can do slides with our big wheels, and we do parallel slides and we do magic slides and such. But it's harder to do with these because they've got less surface area. They don't slide on it. This, you could slide on it. I wonder, I don't know. More experimenting needs to happen.
I think,
sure.
But so I think that the grind plate was solving a problem we didn't know we had.
Yes.
And I also think that what we used to do was actually take a knife or a razor and cut out this shape and make it bigger, and then put stuffing and extra tongues and things like that in there.
Yep.
So that this was getting wider, the sort of the opening on the top.
Yep.
So that, and you're also adding padding, so that when you tie the laces tight, the laces don't hurt the top of your foot.
Yeah.
But because you're stuffing your foot in there with all these extra tongues, that comes all the way up to here, and you're actually preventing heel lift without requiring a heel strap.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So you've eliminated, so you've got no wheel bite, and you've got no heel lift, and you've got a super cushy skate.
Yeah.
And it's just fashion, but we were solving problems then.
I mean,
we didn't know we had. And then now you take all that stuff away and you make a really skinny liner with a thin amount of padding to downsize and solve problems that we have now. If you have to lace these really tight, depending on what laces you have, it can hurt.
Oh yeah.
And depending on how bony the top of your foot is and stuff like that, so it's like, out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
Where we solve one set of problems and we inherit a new set of problems.
That's so funny.
But back in the day, we'd actually solve problems that we will have now that we didn't have then, and it wasn't. No one sat down and figured out, okay, put a grind plate on there and it'll solve the problem.
Yeah, we didn't even think about it.
The grind plate was solving an earlier problem, which is how do you grind it all?
It just happens to be also adding to
and the big fat ones like the big fat CDS and the Senate aluminums and all those things, where you're talking about 1/4 to 3/8 thick. Where when you're talking about turning that and then therefore lifting this off the coping, you're getting some kind of an exponential return. Where you're moving the sort of incident rate or the approach angle of that radius profile, so that you're taking what would be a 3-finger gap and making it into like a 5-finger gap, because you're encountering the wheel, way further out on the edge.
Precisely.
Than
It's hilarious that you bring that up. The best skating that I remember was the best skate that the best skaters skated that I remember back in my heyday was the classic throne, right before UFS.
Okay.
With the second generation, not the first gen throne. The first gen throne had the tight lacing, but the second gen they opened it up, right?
Yeah.
They had the puffy tongues, right? Remember where they had the...
They came
with the second tongue that you would put in, just like you were saying. They had 50-50 frames. So it had that juice system, so it had the flat skating thing with a tight groove, and they had grind plates. And they were probably riding 55mm wheels.
Yeah.
That was it.
Those were some
right?
So
you had no wheel bite.
Like Forest Fire days.
Yep.
And
Coup d'etat and all that.
VG7, VG8 era.
So you had no wheel bite. You had a perfectly flat sole. You had a wide sole area so you could do topside tricks good. You had that puffy tongue so that you didn't have a 45-degree strap, but you didn't need it. You didn't know that you didn't need it, but you didn't need it because you had that extra padding on top.
Right. Actually, I can do this right now because I think you have these things.
Sure.
If I can grab these guys.
That one's busted, or this one's broken too.
Is that one more available?
Where's the other one? Oh no.
Warmed off.
Yeah.
So, I was looking for the liners. What I was actually
I have the liner here.
Is it out?
Yeah.
Oh, you did because you took it out during the other part.
Yeah, I got it.
So,
old liner.
this. Okay, so these old liners, these guys here, the old rollerblade liners. This piece right here, the upper part of the tongue, has a seam right across here.
Right.
And this was the best tongue ever to stuff with because it had this sort of plasticky vinyl on the front. And it was also really nicely padded because it was meant to be at the top of your shin.
Sure.
And the other thing is that this stitching actually keeps this thing intact. So the way to make this piece into the stuffing was to cut this tongue off down here and then poke a hole or two down here to actually attach that either to your liner or to the inside of the skate with T-bolts or something like that. But anyway, this was the perfect thing to stuff with because it was padded in a nice way. It's actually designed to be a liner. And to put a tongue, albeit most of us were doing it for aesthetic reasons or fashion reasons or whatever, or peer pressure reasons.
Right.
Some of the stuffing went right.
I never stuffed, so
okay. Well,
I wasn't one of the cool guys.
I loved it, and I thought it was amazing. And I had made a pair of these from my the first pair of Tarmac CEs that I ever had.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it was a slight improvement over this generation because this is probably a good couple of years before the Tarmac would have come out.
Yeah.
But the thing that was really I used hockey laces.
Sure.
So the thing is, you could cinch those down really tight, have it still be poofy, but then it wouldn't hurt your foot.
Sure.
Because there was enough rigidity to this vinyl.
It's perfect.
And so these things, if you found some of these things in the thrift store for $9 or whatever, you could buy them just for this thing because this is the best part ever to stuff with.
That's so funny.
And it's so wide that it wraps around nicely, and it was incredible. Like,
that's great.
This is the best. And I think that the USDs and the K2s that came with a stuffing tongue, like really missed the point.
Sure.
Where plenty of us had got into it for fashion reasons, but then discovered that like this is great. This is actually great.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I actually kept using that and kept stuffing right on through Shima 2 era.
Sure.
Probably beyond that. I think probably
sense.
I just need to.
And it was your style.
Go back to razors, and go find me a pair of these liners to get set up again.
I mean, it sounds to me like we can solve this shell problem that you're having. I think that the razors. So the problem is that the shift, I think, size is big. Have you seen shifts? You've seen shifts before, I'm sure. You haven't seen them like this. These are too big. The shift shell break, if I remember correctly, I got a size 11 and a half, size 11, and I'm a 10 and a half. You wouldn't be able to fit into this shell, even with a Intuition liner. This would probably be too short for you. You would have to go to the 12, 13, which is again
that's the nightmare I've been living in.
Exactly.
Battleships.
After this, you can try it on and see if you can fit without a liner, and then you can see if you can make it work. But yeah, I mean, I think if you got a pair of racers looking at that big open area, get your puffy tongue back. I wonder if there's going to be a puffy tongue revolution.
Maybe. I mean,
bring it back.
Nobody's followed much of what I've done anyway, so I'm not worried about starting a
doesn't
revolution.
Mean it's not wrong. But
well, the issue that I have with that skate, even if it fit, I would still have the same problem that I have with the Shadow right now. Is that the Royale plate is parallel. I don't know if you still have it, but in future videos when I'm not here, having that little piece of PVC pipe to demonstrate things, hold it up and show the angle and all that kind of stuff.
I finally cleaned my garage. This is the pipe that I was talking about.
This is a fantastic prop. And
it is a great illustrative tool. So if you use the Valo, this is actually not too out of whack now, but the Valo angle where you do the Royales is more against the back. So when you're doing a Royale, instead of being flat like this, you're tilted a little bit like this, lifting your toes a little bit. That's where that angle would go.
Yeah, actually, do you have the rollerblade?
Yeah, it's old school.
Yeah, the old one. So if you had a groove, and what I'm talking about is, let's see how to hold this up so that people can see it. So if you're looking at this like that, the way that if the audience is the skater, you'd be seeing your own foot this way, and this angle right here is 38 degrees.
Sure.
The angle created by that and that.
Okay.
And so that 38 degrees has been the standard in my mind for what this skate does. It makes you do a 38 degree angle Royale.
Right.
So it's actually more acute than a 45 degree angle.
Yeah.
So a 45 degree angle, let's see if I can pretend to do this. Well, I don't know. I'm confusing the hell out of myself right now. Like I'm trying to think backwards of what they'd be seeing and what I'm seeing on this side. Anyway, 45 is something like that. 38 is like that.
Yeah.
Because that's doing is actually hooking in. The rail would be going through the middle wheels and hooking on to this little shark fin right here. And so that's sort of what it made you do. And on the Valos that you had a second ago, I think that you can get really, really close to that.
Yeah.
Where if you were doing this hook right here is what we're talking about, and that's a little bit further up than what it would have been. Well, what it would be with the fin on this if you took the sole plate off. But what you're talking about is basically that kind of an angle there if you're maxed out. But there's any number of competing things that have to do with that affect this. Mainly, where does the manufacturer locate the frame along the forward and backward length of the skate?
That's always
I don't want to say too much, but I've been complaining to Jeff Akers at Razors about fixing the length of where the UFS screws fit under the bottom. And I believe there's news on that front. I'll just say it like that. But that affects where the thing is going to cause this angle to occur.
Exactly.
And that massively affects everyone skating.
Yep.
These are these kinds of architectonic decisions that have ramifications throughout the whole of rollerblading.
Yeah.
And as blade nerds, I think that we're free to talk about all these angles and all these different dimensions and sort of what are the ramifications of changing something.
Totally.
How does the geometry... Bicycling is really good at this. They're like road biking. The rear stays and the tube height and the seat tube length and all this stuff and the angle of the head tube and all this. Those guys, that all the people in that domain are doing an incredible job to accommodate, because all of those different angles in a bicycle
it changes everything about
have effect. Well, I'm tall, but I've got short arms, so I need a different angle because then the handlebars will meet my arms where they are, and then I'm not hunched over, bending my back while I'm riding for 200 miles or whatever dumb thing those guys do. So all of these different, geometric realities have big ramifications. Not the least of which is the grinding, which matters, and that's at the top of our priority list. But also just how the thing functions and how the thing forces you to hold your feet at different angles and the kinds of stress that you're putting on your body because you're bending your foot more than you want to. When you were saying that you think that the best era of skating is like that second gen USD throne era, I really liked TJ Weber in the Oxygens.
Oh yeah,
he was just really bendy. And he was really pronounced. So like you watch TJ Weber do a Soleil, and it just looked like a perfect version.
To add to that, Champion doing Soleils.
Champion was great too.
And he was on the same Oxygens.
Right.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that we don't have a pair of Oxygens here, and this isn't the best place to do the measurement, but. This skate here has the 38-degree Royale, and the Oxygens do too. The Oxygens forced it more than this thing did because where it had the little fin, where this little fin came down, there was actually two sides to the fin when the Royale groove was brand new. And so, again, a smaller groove is better because it forces you into that spot the same way that a small groove in... a frame like this, smaller is better for flat. Smaller grooves are better if you're riding flat. If you're going to ride anti-rocker or if you're going to use juice blocks or any of those things,
it's fine.
As big as you want, you can get rid of the middle wheels, you can ride middle wheels, whatever you want. Bigger groove, whatever. But in my mind, the smaller groove is always going to be better because it's going to force your foot to accomplish more precision. You're gonna have to learn how to dial in your tricks better. Where you jump on and you're spotting, a 2-finger gap instead of a 5-finger gap. Your feet move less when you settle into the rail and all that kind of stuff. And so in a certain way, I feel like having lower tolerances result in better skating because you always have to err on the side of people are smart. People are talented. They'll learn how to do this, and over time, the ramifications of having small grooves will force good style on the populace, whether they like it or not. Because the fact is, if you don't lock onto that little groove, you're going to fall off. But if you've got some giant thing...
if you do lock onto that little groove, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
Versus a big groove where there's multiple options of where you could still lock on. None of them are going to be perfect. Interesting.
But I think that you also have to balance that with the sort of barrier to entry. And we talked about this when we were talking about tricks the other day. That if you're getting back into skating, if you're haven't skated in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, some people, and they might have been really into rollerblading before. You want to be able to get some of your old tricks back, pretty quick. Like if you come back and you're dying to get a soul grind, you're gonna think, oh, just forget it, and then you're gonna go back home and turn the TV back on, and my wife and I have been watching the Great British Bake Off.
Great show.
Just marathon in that thing.
Great show.
It's so easy to find something other than skating to do, and so any skate, if it's an anti-rocker or if it's got juice blocks or if it's got a full freestyle with nothing in there, not everybody's in it to try to save the style of rollerblading. Like maybe you don't care. What you really want is to try to balance these things where the sort of entry the barrier to entry to get back into blading.
Yeah.
You want to be able to get 4 or 5 tricks going.
Yeah.
Within the first couple of times you go out, because you remember you've done things in the past.
This
you
feels good. Oh yeah, I remember this.
I remember how great a topsoil feels and stuff like that, or the feeling of trying and falling, and then thinking about it, or if you've got a commitments issue, or it's a body movement issue, or if it's a hardware issue.
Totally.
I know I need a different frame, and this will be fine. That's all fine. But you've got to balance all those technical things with the sort of where the rubber meets the road is. People want to get back into blading, and they want to
absolutely
get 4 or 5, 10 at best.
Yeah.
But keep your eyes on the prize. 4 or 5 good tricks where you go out and royale the coping, or you soul the coping, or Machio the ledge, or whatever your tricks were back in the day. For some people, it's Unity.
Sure.
For some people, it's top acid. Yep. There was just some clips the other day of Walt Austin, and it might have been at Woodward.
Maybe,
And it's like what would be like a 6-stair down ledge, and he went up and did topside acid. It was clearly the first one that he's done in a while. But for Walt, clearly a top acid was like one of those go-tos where when you get back into blading, you've got your eyes on. Yep. As soon as I feel comfortable grinding, that top acid's at the top of the list.
And that's where the equipment can get in the way. That's where your body motion, like what to do. Let me do it the way that I want to do it, and that's why, to your point, finding the right skates that are going to give you the flexibility that you need. They might not be perfect, your first skates back might not be the skates that you end up investing in for the rest of the skating career, but it's the first beginner. I'm back, I can do my tricks, and then, I'm a little sloppy here, or, this is I want this to be a little tighter, or whatever, and then you can refine that setup.
Yeah.
Love it.
So where are we at now?
I don't know, what time is it, 10:30? Does anybody have any questions for Frank? Frank's not here very often, so again, thank you all for watching. This is more of I just wanted to have another opportunity to talk to Frank about gear, and I felt like it was a great time to bring him on, because I'm going to be talking about gear here. Why not talk about gear with anybody? So if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear from you. Frank's got a wealth of knowledge. Used to skate for Razors back in the days. Grew up skating in Texas. Mostly rail guy. You could even talk to him about tricks and learning tricks and stuff. I'll put a link in the description to some mini ramp stuff that Frank did. He did an edit of getting old and still trying to skate.
Getting fat. I feel like getting fat is bigger.
Was it fat or was it old?
I feel like old isn't my problem. I feel like fat is my problem.
Yeah, one of the
and I'm not helping myself by talking about the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Great skater too. So a much better skater than I am. Knows a lot about the industry and knows a lot about the history of stuff. So, any questions? Please let me know.
Al.
Yeah. So Al asks, have you tried the 1112 shell Aeon or the V13 1112 shell? I don't have those here, but...
So I have not tried the Aeons at all. That may change here in the next half hour or so.
See if you can fit them in.
As far as the M12, so I haven't actually had tried any of those lately. I think the biggest concern that I've got is that the knowledge that I have is old knowledge, and I think that it's so old that my foot is actually a different size than it was when I was 20. I think that my foot's probably between an 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch longer than it was, and I think that translates to something like either a full size or a half size. I can't remember which one. But those are probably good skates for me. The Colts, I think, are possibilities for me. I always skated those in the past, and I really, really like them. With again, like I said, the possibility of some news from Jeff. I don't know if he's made an announcement or not, but I don't want to get the cart before the horse. So I'll just say that if there's news having to do with that mold having slight changes, that would definitely affect me going back to a razor skate with the narrower skate with the more pronounced Royale angle. And actually, Jeff was nice enough to send me a small box of the old style Royale plates, the sort of upside down Nike swoosh. Rather than the Elliott plate.
The Elliott plate, which was the forward.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
That's how John did it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But what I don't like stylistically is the Nugan or Farfanugan or whatever.
Yeah.
Full torque, some people say.
Do it.
Where the toe points out and it almost starts to look like a Mizu.
Yeah.
For a backside Nugan.
Yeah.
I just think it looked really dooky.
Yeah.
And like
that's fair.
Plenty of people do it that way. Plenty of people have done it. Like a good point to make is you look at Fish and you look at what's his name from Idaho? Eric Bailey.
Yeah.
Both of them do a front torque where it almost looks like it wants to go fish brain. It's like almost like the front foot is pitched, the toe is pitched forward and then out, so they're grinding on almost like the ball of the pinky toe part of the foot.
Yeah.
Whereas
so very
the
boot versus
toe fish or toe torque.
Yeah.
Rather than what I would do is almost an Elliott Macchio, where the foot comes back so far that you're basically leading with the heel. Yeah. Because I've got that 38-degree toe pointing that way. Yep. So the way that I do it is more like an Elliott Macchio.
Front side.
Front side.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so a backside Nugan would almost want to be like a true top sole.
Yes.
You know, where it's come around that way.
Yeah.
And that foot's just almost a top sole.
Yeah.
But I always found that it slid really well, and that for me, my foot would go into that position. I think where most people stick on Nugans is by jumping on and then bending over. Yeah. And then when your foot bends over and you catch boot, you tend to grip and get thrown over. Totally. Whereas if you jump on and you've put the boot down, the instant that it hits, it'll slide perfect every time, and you could stand on that and you could balance on that. Yeah. And you can safely feel any resistance in the rail or the ledge or the coping or whatever.
Agree. Same goes with Royale. So if you jump on Royale and you try to roll back, like you jump on front side, right, and you say, "Oh, I'm going to go Royale," it's like you're going to eat shit. Yeah, that's not the way.
You're going to slip out. You're going to stick, and then you're going to do that. I feel like that moment where you go Royale and the back foot sticks and your feet flex into front side. Yeah. I feel like some of us sooner or later are gonna ruin a knee, like blow out an ACL with that jarring motion where your back foot catches and your leg just gets yanked, wrenched into a front side. It's a
weird feeling. You're right.
And I've felt that a couple of times with getting wheel bite on a back Royale. Right. Particularly like a really sit down back Royale. Yeah. And to get that back Royale leg just yanked into like a UFO. Yeah. Ooh, on a cold night, like that could be it for your knee, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Ugh.
But long story short, that was my shaggy dog answer
no, I haven't
to Al's question, which is no, I haven't tried the Aeons. Kira's asking if I tried.
There was about the C-Chick.
I haven't tried those. No, I've been stuck on these. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, everybody. I haven't tried anything. I suck, and I haven't.
It's not like there's skate shops to go to.
There's not skate shops, but like I haven't bought anything. I had a skate that worked, which was this USD or the Shadow. Yeah. And I hoarded parts when I heard that they were going to go under. Smiley, Jason Mosley, he did the same thing. So he's got boxes full of that stuff too. And I don't like it. I'm stuck with it. It's good enough, and I have a guarantee in my garage that I could skate for 20 more years if I live 20 more years. Yes. So
if you skate 20 more years, you will live 20 more years. That's the point.
That's probably true.
Keep skating, you're going to be good.
That's probably true.
As soon as you stop skating,
I would like to go back to the hard boot skates though, like an Aeon, or a Razor Cult, or
Colts are great. The
skate.
SLs are great. I think either one of those would be good for you. I think the SL. Did you ever skate the SLs?
No. So the SL is like what I would characterize as the Genesis style, and I almost feel like the shifts are the same kind of thing, and it's got that Royale at 90 degrees, and that's just hopeless. Like I don't want that.
Fair.
The thems thems or
the Colts fine.
or Valos, or maybe even, I don't think there's any of them here, but the Trooper style rollerblades, not those.
No, I have these, but these are the New Jacks. The problem with the New Jack is that this Royale groove, you can see how deep it is. Mm-hmm. They just went to town.
Yeah.
And there's really, we were talking about the slop that you get from the accuracy of having a tight groove. That's equally as true if you have a tight groove in your Royale as you have in your frame. If you've got a big sloppy groove for your Royale, you're going to have sloppy Royales.
Yeah. I think you said it right that time. Yeah. A second ago, I think you said the slop you get from a small groove.
Yeah.
And I know that you meant the opposite.
Yeah, big groove.
The big groove means, your feet are wobbling around.
Right.
I wrote an article about this, actually. It was talking about trying to make, this is part of a larger strategic kind of a series, talking about how to, and you might be interested in this because you used to be an ASA judge.
Yeah.
Trying to make objective, very subjective things like style.
Right.
And so one thing that you can say in the jump on portion, if you forget all about style, as far as waving arms and grinding and all that, just the moment when you lock on, right? There's a moment in the air when your brain has done a great deal of motor planning, which is to put your feet in the right position in the air a split second before your feet come down on the rail.
Right.
I'm doing forward porn. I don't know why.
It's a weird trick.
But so really good style would show that your brain had done all the butler work to get your affairs in order ahead of time, so that there's a moment in the air before you hit the rail, and then when you hit the rail, your feet don't adjust.
Right.
And you can tell that, like a human brain in the N400 time span, the 4 milliseconds, can actually perceive that level of motion. And you can tell whether when somebody jumps on, there's like a little adjustment.
Right.
Like you can just tell in an instant. And you
sure.
can tell at a distance whether there was some movement there,
right,
or whether you just jumped on and your feet were just there.
Right.
You know?
Like the Soyal, and then you push the foot in.
Yeah, and then you bend it in, or
connect.
the old, what some people called a shifty Royale, which was going front side into a Royale.
Yep.
Shifty and Royale both have plenty of differences, but it's the same thing. A lot of people do that with Nugan, where they jump on and then bend into the Nugan.
Yeah,
and lots of times they're like lifting an arm up some crazy way.
I do it a lot with topside tricks, and the reason is that when I land topside, I have a really hard time landing flat topside, so I'll land and then I'll push my foot down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's a two-step process. I know that there are people like John Julio, for example, who just land topside.
Right.
And that's where I aspire to be.
Well, so on that note, I think that something like a Valo would be great, because if you skated this with a tall frame and a relatively non-cafeteria tray sole plate, what you find is, if you don't get over far enough to hook on,
I slip out.
It just didn't work. So the only times that it does work are when you're over far enough ahead of time. So if you do that over and over and over, what you'll find is your top soles get dialed and dialed, more and more, and that your style would get better because your performance is getting better.
Totally.
Because you jump on, the thing hooks on, and there's no movement. You don't hook on and then bend over to flex it out or whatever. It's just there in the first place.
Agreed.
And I think that in general, small grooves do that.
And small soles.
Small soles. Small soles, small grooves. And it's funny because it's the opposite of what everybody asked for.
Oh, totally.
Everybody for years was saying shorter frames, bigger grooves, wider sole plates, and then the industry manufacturers, the brands and the companies, made all these things.
I mean, look at me in the freestyle frames.
Yeah.
Where the groove was so deep.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do anything to get boot down on a
Royale. I saw that video where you're talking about that. Like you're getting boot like at like 10 degrees.
Yeah, and that's not going to lead to good, because you don't have that balance. Like you were saying with the locking yourself in on a Royale, you're not going to lock in on a Royale unless you really get down. And with a freestyle frame and a deep groove, that's a really difficult thing to do. The numbers just don't add up.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Yeah. I think that the V13s are a big part of why. What's his name? I just gone blank.
Who skates V13s?
He did the top sole around that curvy rail. He's one of the Cayenne guys. David
Sizemore. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, David.
Yes.
You know, he's like steezy as anybody.
Yes.
Like, you can't get much more steezy than that guy. And he skates these skates. And he looks great in them because, you know, a lot of the geometry in this thing is just really classic. And it's really established. And he's also really talented, you know.
Yeah.
But you get that talented by skating a skate where if you don't hook on right, it just fails.
Yeah.
So you get to the point where you do it over and over and you get good at it. And so you only do it well.
Yep.
You don't do it badly because you can't do it badly. You'll slip off or whatever. And I think that the same thing is true back a million years ago when this was the sole plate width that you had to deal with.
Totally.
Like, if you could sole grind a kink rail with that thing.
Oh, yeah.
You had sole grinds down.
Have you seen any of these videos where guys are getting, I mean, Kazu was doing it just a few weeks ago, where they're getting the old Lightnings and they're souping them up and they're going and doing new school, like, new style tricks.
Yeah.
So they're doing,
you and Ben talked about
the skates are exploding while they're doing it.
Like the cuff breaks. Yeah. Like mid rail. Because it's like 30-year-old plastic.
Around,
yeah.
I mean, that's really the test. Like, can you do a sole grind on every skate? And that's where I run into problems. You know, I'm an okay skater. Mm-hmm. If I look at this suite of skates, and
it's a nice collection.
Thank you. And I try to do my normal tricks, right? So I have these 10 tricks that I always go through whenever I do a new skate video. How can I do them? You know, being an average skater, like, if I struggle on any of these skates, back to your original point about when I get back to blading, I want to nail those 5 tricks and I want to feel good about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to be a David Sizemore in order to land a top sole.
Right.
You know, I don't do top soles, but like a top acid for me, like if I can't top acid, something's wrong with the skate. And I know that it's something wrong with me. But something is wrong with the skate that doesn't allow me to do the tricks that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And it might be the combination of the frame and the boot and the sole plate and maybe the weather and I can't bend down super low. But any of those factors could be the reason why somebody wouldn't get back into blading.
Yeah.
So that's always in the back of my head.
One of the things that I think that's really nice though is that the sort of the range that's available is such that if you just need to get the top acid done to feel like you've done rollerblading today,
get
yourself some shadows. The sole plates are 6 inches wide.
Yeah.
You know, I could
shadows with some balance.
You know, I can lock on Machio from here, to the rail at my house because the things are, 2,000 miles across, for sole plates. And that's great. And so I think that if you're just trying to get the job done, you're just trying to get a top acid done down this coping or across this rail or whatever.
Yep.
Go for what's going to get the job done, man.
Right.
If you're in a position where you're coming back to blading and your skates are still being made, by all means, get your old skates. They're going to feel just like they did.
Get those roasties.
Yeah, the Fifth Elements or whatever you had, or whatever you had in 2000 or 2001. Most things are pretty close. Where but if you had some weird skate that, like you've got, the 250. You made a lot of points about the
front streets.
The front streets that it's not a 250.
No.
And so you've said again and again, if you had the 250s. Don't count on the front street being a 250.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fine. It's good to have you told all the people that.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you can get your old skate, get it, and you're gonna have some ancient muscle memory where it's gonna come back. Yeah. If you can't, go for the thing that's gonna get the job done. And if that's a wide sole plate with a low profile frame, getting the top acid is the important thing.
Yeah, it's not impressing the judge.
Because you're not gonna,
what I mean?
You're not gonna be out of blading for 15 or 20 years and come back and show a thing or two to David Sizemore. No, just get the top acid done. Fun. Feel good about skating again. That's the ball game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. See if there's any more questions, and then we're gonna wrap up. I think we're good. Yeah. Thoughts on Crawford's, and thanks, Joey. Thank you for that one. So we talk. So let me ask you a question about this. So we do. So these are. Have you ever seen wizards before, Frank?
I have not in real life.
So
that's a nice piece of metal.
It's a serious piece of metal. Yeah. So these are wizard frames. So these are the 4x100s. The wheelbase is long. There is what they call the natural rocker. So over years, Leon has developed a rocker pattern, and you'll appreciate this. So some of the wheels are lower than others. So it is not a banana rocker. It is a.
That's exactly what I thought. That's the front.
Yeah, isn't it
so
crazy?
It's the front 3 down.
Yep.
And then the back 2, if you lean on your heels.
Precisely.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
So it gives you a pivot, so you're able to go and do, floor tricks, and they have a whole language of tricks like gazelles and like figure skating tricks that have been merged with aggressive, that have been merged with regular like recreational rollerblading that allow you to do stuff in the flatland. It's a lot of fun. My problem is that I come from, I can't get my hockey skates are way over there. My problem is that I come from a hockey background. Mm-hmm. So for me, just grabbing the Solomon because it's available. This distance needs to be tight. I can't have the 1 to 4 to be too long. And when I do crossovers.
Oh, you're talking about actually crossing over
when you turn.
Okay,
when I'm doing skating. So doing crossovers in these bad boys.
You want to hit your toe because it's in the way.
That's precisely it.
Okay.
I fall down a lot when I skate these.
Okay.
I fall down a lot more when I skate. I don't know that I have the. So there's the. These are actually shorter than the K2 R100s. They're also a 100 4x100 frame. They provide the traditional K2 rocker system, so it's that 6-way rocker. So you could do banana rocker, you could do whatever you want, but they're a little bit longer than these. I like these more than I like the R100s. The problem is that I can't skate like I normally skate. I have to adjust the way that I skate. So I can't do my hockey style crossovers. I can't skate backwards like I normally do because I end up clipping my wheels and I eat shit.
Well, so my question would be, if you were to, so what I'm imagining is you put those on your skates and you skate down the neighborhood.
Yes.
And you're talking about, making an American style intersection, right-hand turn or left-hand turn at an intersection.
Exactly.
And you're doing a big big wide strides crossover.
Less graceful for some of us.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're in big soft wheels like that, there's more grace. There's more grace than you're giving yourself credit for.
That's fair.
But what I'm saying is, don't skate those that way.
Right.
Take those to a tennis court.
Yes.
And skate them, and don't be doing those big crossovers. The kinds of moves that you see Joey and others doing aren't. They're not cutting across an intersection doing this big long crossovers.
No.
They're doing fakey slides to forwards and the gazelle and the all these different kind of.
100% agree.
So you shouldn't have that problem if you're using that. I don't know.
In a different way. Yeah, exactly. And that is my problem with these frames is that I want to fully commit to these frames, but I don't want to fully commit to these frames because I love grinder blading.
Yeah.
So switching between a 50-50 balance frame or whatever frame I'm testing at the time and going on a Saturday to this and a Sunday to the grinder blader setup is a really difficult adjustment.
Yeah,
and I forget which one I'm skating and I end up falling down.
Yeah. Let me hold this up real quick.
Please, yeah.
Just because it's never been clear to me and no one's ever been able to do what I'm about to do. What they're saying with the natural rocker, let me hold this where it can be seen, is that if you put that on there like that, you'll see a tiny space. You can probably see my sweater through there. So this is the front. The toe would be here. The heel would be here. And so the front 3 are sort of in ascending order where those 3 wheels are spinning, and there's a little gap at the bottom. And so then if you're leaning forward on the skate, you're all 3 of your front 3 wheels are touching, but the heel is lifted off the ground. And then if you're coasting on your heels with your toes sort of up in the air, the back 2 wheels. Let's see if I can do this. So the back 2 wheels will be touching, and the front 2 will be lifted off the ground. So that's what's meant by natural rocker.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done a really terrible job explaining that. And to get here and see this in real life, and to call this piece of PVC pipe pretty close to a straight edge.
It's close enough.
That's close enough to say what the thing is. That's what's meant, is that when you're in a tack skating forward,
yes,
you've got a reasonably long wheelbase from 1 to 3,
right,
and that's something like, I don't know, 8 or 9 inches,
sure,
which is probably fairly close to what your wheelbase is like in that Solomon.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty close to that anyway. But so in this skate, you won't ever have all 4 wheels on the ground.
Correct.
You'll have either the front 3 or the back 2, but never all 4. And so you get a lot of contact with the ground on the front 3 in an attack skate where you're trying to charge and build up a lot of speed. But if you're kind of like coasting, you're sort of sitting back. Maybe you've got your hands on your knees, catching your breath or whatever. You might just be cruising on these back 2, and it'll feel way swivelly.
You have the maneuverability. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
This does not feel like a long wheelbase.
Yeah. But so then that's just for the actual skating.
Right. So this is flat.
Right. Yeah.
This is a very long wheelbase. These are completely. I mean, it's the same wheel. It's almost the same wheelbase.
It's pretty comparable. Yeah.
This is for skating distance in a straight line for miles and miles and miles, and it is excellent at doing that. It's hard to turn with these. I don't do crossovers with these. And the point that I make is, when I skate these skates, I'm not in the mindset that I'm going to be doing crossovers.
Or
I'm in the
turning
mindset
at all.
Or turning at all.
Skating from here to Charlotte, and that's it.
I'm just going straight. And it's like, just let me go straight. Like, get out of my way. I'm skating straight. With those, because I can turn so much, I want to have fun, and I want to feel like I can do my hockey style. Yeah. Not only attack pose, but attack crossovers, right?
Yeah.
And I can't.
Well, so I really think that that what's really cool about all this is that if you're gonna go skate for 30 miles in a straight line, get those. That's what they're there for. You wouldn't go skate 30 miles in these. You shouldn't.
Right.
They're not made for that.
Precisely.
If you're gonna take these out, you won't have the toe clipping during the crossover skating. Go down to the tennis court and try to do some swivels and gazelles and so on and so forth, and you'll probably have a lot more fun.
And I do. And it is a lot of fun.
It's neat that we've gotten to a point where there's this much specialization in skating, where a frame that looks like this and a frame that looks like that, even though to an untrained eye looks similar, it's a giant wheel, it's big and soft, it's got spokes the size of a bike tire or a bike wheel. I mean, that's enormous. I mean, the hub is bigger than my wheels. By like a centimeter.
No doubt.
This is meant for the kind of stuff that Joey and Leon and Todd and all those guys, you can use it in a skate park. They do. Plenty of other people do. Michael Kraft does it really well. But, the parking garage sessions that you see them, swivel to Macchio to fakie to shuffle to such and such, like, that's cool. And the open question I think about mushroom blading is whether the kinds of breakthroughs that have occurred in mushroom blading are ever going to kind of make their way back into mainstream grinder blading. What I would really, really like, and I think that they're close on a number of fronts to developing, is a way for grinder bladers to skate across the platform of a ramp and just use the platform to generate speed to skate a different part of the ramp. So when you've got big, like out in Colorado, there's giant, amazing skate parks everywhere. Okay. And there may not be a line in the bowl that you're skating to do what you want to do. Like, maybe you want to hit this hip and go over there and grind a long piece of coping. But there may not be a way to get the speed that you want to do that long grind or to do a big air transfer or something like that. And so what you may need to do is come out of the bowl, skate across the platform of the ramp, and then jump back in somewhere else that you couldn't get by skating in the transition, or you couldn't get the same amount of speed. Have something to do on the flat bottom or on the platform that indicates that it's still your turn. Just because you've got out onto the platform doesn't mean your turn's over. Right. And the way that if you're doing a heel manual or a toe manual, everyone knows that you're not just skating. You're doing a trick, and so you can't drop in yet. It's not your turn. That person's turn isn't over yet.
Like, oh, he's still going.
He's still doing a thing, and it's noticeable enough as a trick. A trick is occurring. He's not done. He gets store credit for still being involved with the ramp. So it's not my turn yet.
But to your point, it needs to continue to build energy. It can't be a slow, like you can't just do a
toe
slide.
Manual,
you
toe
can't
manual,
do it. Because that's not gonna. That's just is as slow as going out and just doing it in the other direction. There needs to be, and I think that done properly, gazelles and stuff will continue because of the way that you pivot and you turn. You won't lose energy and you can gain energy by that push. So maybe that's that missing link for the.
I think what's really really great about what they're doing is that they're doing a lot more. I think their most hated things that people want to complain on them the most is for the like silly kinds of leg kicks and stuff like that.
Yes.
But I think that there's something there that shouldn't be forgotten, which is that like swinging a leg, swinging an arm is what can generate a spin, is what can cause something to happen. And so even though sometimes they're doing it to mock rollerblading, sometimes they're doing it to mock certain rollerbladers.
Or to mock themselves.
To mock themselves. or they're just genuinely like boys at heart having fun
on
in a way that's
wheels
just
on their feet.
Hysterical.
Yes.
All the way to the bank.
That's
I mean, all the way to the bank. I don't know what they're making for it, but like we're holding their wheels.
Yeah.
And these frames.
I mean,
it's fantastic.
Yes.
It's absolutely fantastic. and my point is, there's room in the sandbox for that kind of skating where you don't know what's going to come from it. We don't know what problems we're going to have to solve in the future.
Yeah.
And so more of everything is better. More liners, more different kinds of skates, more wheels, more wheel profiles, more frames that have 3 down, 2 in the back, all these different kinds of experiments going on. We need more of all of this because we don't know what we're going to have to face in the future. And if you're having fun in the meantime, then like, what the hell?
Who cares?
That's the whole point.
Yeah, get out of my way.
Yeah. So,
love it.
But as far as crossovers, to answer that from
yes, crossovers. Would skate better.
Don't take it out on the street. Take it to the tennis court.
Yeah. That's very true.
It's not meant for crossovers. It's meant for swivels and gazelles.
You're right.
We give that back. I'm glad to have held that. Those are nice. That's a nice.
And this is an older
nice
version.
object.
So the newer versions are even more refined.
Are they?
Yeah, they're
cool.
Colored. They're anodized. They have more screen printing. It's just a really polished product now. So.
Cool.
All right, I think we're good. 2 hours. That's a good. It's a good session. It's like a podcast. You guys, it's a podcast.
Got a free podcast.
Free podcast out of this. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Frank, for coming all the way out here and
pleasure.
Spending time. I hope that we can do it again next Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
if
we'll
you're going to be here for
Hopefully
next Thanksgiving.
So. Maybe Christmas.
Or maybe Christmas. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great week and happy Thanksgiving if you're in America and celebrate that sort of thing. Bye.